The hospital room was small, just enough space for 2 beds and a shared nightstand. 2 men, both seriously ill, occupied the beds. Thomas, a kind-faced man with tired eyes, lay in the bed by the window. Across from him was Arthur, his face etched with worry and pain. Arthur was unable to leave his bed, his illness keeping him bound. He longed for a glimpse of the outside world, a distraction from the sterile walls of the hospital. Thomas, noticing Arthur's longing gaze, offered a solution. "Don't you worry, my friend," he said. "I have a view of the window. I'll describe everything I see." Arthur, his spirits lifted by this unexpected kindness, readily agreed. He closed his eyes and settled back against his pillows, eager to escape into the world Thomas would paint for him. Every day, Thomas wove tales of the world outside the window. He described children laughing as they chased pigeons in the park. He spoke of vibrant flower vendors, their stalls bursting with color and life. One day he described a parade passing by. "There are musicians," Thomas said, his voice filled with enthusiasm, "and dancers in bright costumes. The music is so cheerful it makes me want to tap my feet." Arthur would listen, captivated. He could almost feel the sun on his skin, smell the freshly cut grass, and hear the laughter of children. Thomas's descriptions were so vivid, so full of life, they brought joy to Arthur's heart. Weeks turned into months. Thomas's descriptions became Arthur's lifeline, his only connection to the outside world. They brought him comfort, hope, and a much-needed distraction from his illness. Then one morning, everything changed. Arthur awoke to an unfamiliar silence. The usual sounds of the hospital seemed muffled, distant. He turned his head towards Thomas's bed, a sense of dread creeping into his heart. Thomas lay very still, his face pale, his chest no longer rising and falling with each breath. A nurse stood beside him, gently closing his eyes. Tears welled up in Arthur's eyes. He felt a profound sense of loss, as if a part of him had also slipped away. Section 4. A wall, not a window. The days that followed were dark and lonely for Arthur. He missed Thomas terribly, his heart aching with each passing moment. One afternoon, a nurse helped him into a wheelchair and wheeled him outside for fresh air. As they approached the window, the one Thomas had so vividly described, Arthur's heart filled with anticipation. He had longed for this moment, to see for himself the world that Thomas had painted for him. The nurse positioned the wheelchair facing the window. Arthur took a deep breath and looked up. But instead of the bustling street, the vibrant park, the colorful parades, he saw only a blank grey wall. Section 5. The truth revealed. Confusion washed over Arthur. He looked at the nurse, his eyes filled with questions. The wall. He stammered, "Where is the park, the children, the parade?" The nurse smiled sadly and placed a comforting hand on his arm. "Arthur," she said softly. Thomas was blind. He hadn't had his sight for years. Arthur was stunned. "Blind," he whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief. "But how could he—" He trailed off, his mind struggling to grasp the truth. "He wanted to give you hope," the nurse explained gently. "He knew you were struggling, and he wanted to share something beautiful with you." Section 6. The power of painted pictures. Arthur sat in silence, his heart filled with a mixture of sadness and awe. Thomas, despite his own suffering, had dedicated his final days to bringing joy into Arthur's life. He had painted vibrant pictures with his words, not to deceive, but to inspire hope. In that moment, Arthur understood the true power of positivity. Thomas's descriptions, though not a reflection of the physical world, had created a world of hope and beauty within the hospital room. They had given Arthur the strength to endure, to find moments of joy even in the face of suffering. Arthur realized that our reality is not merely defined by what we see, but also by what we choose to focus on. Thomas, through his selfless act of kindness, had taught him that even in the darkest of times, a little bit of positivity can make all the difference.